My name is Adrian Torres, and I'm 34 years old. The conference room smelled like expensive leather and old coffee. I sat at the mahogany table, watching my father-in-law's face twist into something between triumph and pity. His fingers drummed against the folder in front of him. The rhythm felt practiced, like he'd been waiting months to perform this particular song. "Adrian," Vincent Harper said, his voice smooth as silk over gravel. "We've made some organizational changes. Your role as director is being reassigned to someone with more traditional experience." I didn't move. Couldn't move. Behind Vincent sat 3 other board members, their expressions carefully neutral. My wife Isabella's uncle, Warren, stared at his notepad. Her cousin Theo checked his phone. The company attorney, a sharp-faced woman named Patricia Winters, kept her eyes on the documents. "Traditional experience," I repeated. My coffee had gone cold an hour ago, but I gripped the cup anyway. Something to anchor me while the room tilted sideways. Vincent smiled. Not warmly. "Family legacy matters in this business. You've been helpful, certainly. But Harper Industries needs leadership that understands its roots. I married Isabella 3 years ago. Started working at her family's manufacturing company 2 weeks later. Director of operations within 18 months. I'd streamlined production, cut costs by 30%, and landed contracts Vincent had called impossible. The thing about betrayal is how quietly it arrives. No dramatic music. No warning signs. Just a Tuesday morning meeting where your father-in-law strips away everything you've built. "The board voted yesterday," Vincent continued. He slid the folder across the table. Inside, my termination paperwork waited with fresh ink. "Unanimous decision. You'll remain as operations manager, of course. We value your contributions." Operations manager. A demotion disguised as reassurance. I'd gone from boardroom to break room in one sentence. "Isabella knows." "Yes." My voice sounded distant, like someone else was speaking through my mouth. Vincent's smile widened a fraction. "My daughter understands business necessities. She supports the decision completely." That hurt worse than the termination. Isabella and I had spent last night planning our anniversary trip. She'd kissed me goodbye this morning, told me she loved me, and handed me my coffee. Not one word about this meeting. Not one hint that her father planned to gut my career before breakfast. Warren finally looked up from his notepad. "It's nothing personal, Adrian. Just corporate restructuring." "Nothing personal," I echoed. "Right." I signed the papers. What else could I do? Fight? Argue? Vincent Harper owned 60% of the company. His brother, Isabella's late uncle, had owned 30. The remaining 10 belonged to minor shareholders. Vincent's word was law. I drove home slowly. The November rain matched my mood, turning the highway into sheets of gray. Our house sat in the suburbs, a modest 3-bedroom Isabella had insisted we buy instead of renting. She'd said it was an investment. I wondered now what else she'd been planning. The garage door opened. Isabella's car already sat inside, which meant she'd left work early. Probably to explain. Maybe to apologize. I hoped for the latter, expecting the former. She met me in the kitchen. Her dark hair was pulled back, business clothes still crisp at 2 in the afternoon. She'd been crying, I could tell. Her eyes held that particular redness that came from controlled tears, the kind you shed in bathroom stalls between meetings. "Adrian," she reached for my hand. I let her take it. Didn't squeeze back. "Dad told me what happened. I'm so sorry." "You knew." Not a question. A statement. "You knew before this morning." Isabella bit her lip. "He told me last week. Made me promise not to say anything. Said it would be easier if you didn't see it coming." "Easier?" I pulled my hand away. I walked to the window. Rain streaked down the glass like the world was crying for me. "Easier for who?" "For everyone." Her voice cracked. "Adrian, please understand. This is Dad's company. His legacy. He built it from nothing after Grandpa died. I turned to face her. Isabella looked small suddenly, despite her 5'8" frame. She'd always carried herself with confidence, the kind that came from growing up Harper. Now she seemed to fold inward, shoulders hunched, arms crossed. I made that company 30% more profitable, I said quietly. I landed the Peterson contract, the Riverside deal. I fixed the supply chain disaster your cousin created. And your father just erased me from the board because I don't have the right last name. It's not about names, Isabella protested. It's about legacy, family tradition. Dad wants Theo to take over eventually. He needs to learn from someone who understands the Harper way of doing things. The Harper way. I laughed. No humor in it. You mean the way that almost bankrupted the company 2 years ago? Before I restructured everything. Isabella flinched. That's not fair. None of this is fair. I grabbed my keys from the counter. I need to drive. Clear my head. Where are you going? Does it matter? I headed for the door. Stopped halfway. Did you support his decision? At the meeting yesterday when they voted? Did you tell him this was wrong? Silence. The kind that answers every question you're afraid to ask. I wasn't at the meeting, Isabella whispered. He didn't invite me. But if you had been there. I looked back at her. If your father had asked your opinion, what would you have said? More silence. I left. 5. I drove to the only place that made sense. My mother's house sat 20 minutes outside the city, a small ranch-style home she'd bought after Dad died. She answered on the second knock, took one look at my face and pulled me inside. What happened? She guided me to the kitchen table. I started making tea without asking if I wanted any. Mom always made tea when things went wrong. Had since I was 8 years old and came home crying about bullies. I told her everything. Vincent's announcement. The demotion. Isabella's admission. Mom listened without interrupting, her hands steady as she poured hot water over tea bags. Only when I finished did she speak. That man is a snake, she said simply. Always has been. I told you when you married Isabella. Be careful with her family. Money makes people cruel. I thought if I worked hard enough, proved myself enough, they'd see me as one of them. I wrapped my hands around the warm mug. Stupid. Not stupid. Hopeful. Mom sat across from me. There's a difference. But Adrian, hope without strategy is just wishing. What are you going to do now? What can I do? Vincent owns the company. Does he? Mom's eyes held something sharp. Your father taught you to read the fine print. Did you read yours? I frowned. What do you mean? Mom stood. I walked to her office. Returned carrying a manila folder I recognized immediately. When your Uncle Bernard died, Mom said, setting the folder on the table. He left you something. You were too busy with the wedding to pay attention. I handled the paperwork. Uncle Bernard. Dad's brother. He died 4 years ago, 6 months before I met Isabella. Heart attack at 59. I'd been to the funeral, signed some documents, forgotten about it in the chaos of new love. He left me his coin collection, I said. I donated it to a museum. He left you more than coins. Mom opened the folder. Inside were stock certificates, yellowed with age but perfectly legal. Your uncle invested in Harper Industries 30 years ago, when Vincent's father first started the company. Small investment back then. $5,000 for a 10% stake. My heart started beating faster. 10%. Vincent's father gave shares to early investors. Your uncle was one of 3 outside the family. The other 2 sold their shares back to Vincent years ago. But Bernard never did. He left his shares to you. Mom smiled. You own 10% of Harper Industries, Adrian. Since the day Bernard died. I stared at the certificates. My name typed cleanly in the owner field. Adrian Michael Torres. 10%. Not enough to control anything. But enough to matter. Vincent doesn't know, I said slowly. How would he? The shares are still listed under Bernard's estate in the company records. You never transferred them officially. We just never got around to filing the paperwork. Mom leaned back. But they're yours. Legal and binding. I spent that night in Mom's guest room, reading through Uncle Bernard's documents. The stock certificates were just the beginning. There were letters, notes, records of every shareholder meeting since the company's founding. Bernard had been meticulous. And he'd been angry. The letters showed it clearly. Vincent's father, Richard Harper, had promised Bernard that original investors would have board seats for life. He'd put it in writing. But when Richard died 15 years ago and Vincent took over, he'd systematically pushed out every non-family shareholder, bought them out at reduced prices, threatened lawsuits, made their lives miserable until they sold. Bernard had refused, held on to his shares out of pure spite, and documented everything. This changes things, I muttered, reading through a particularly detailed letter about Vincent's hostile takeover of another shareholder. This changes everything. My phone buzzed. Isabella. 7th call tonight. I ignored it like the others. I wasn't ready to talk. I wasn't sure what to say. Instead, I called someone else. Malcolm Pierce, corporate attorney, former law school classmate. We'd kept in touch over the years, meeting for basketball games and birthday dinners. He owed me a favor after I'd helped him land a contract with one of my suppliers last year. Adrian. Malcolm answered on the third ring. It's 11 at night. This better be good. It's better than good. I looked at the certificates spread across the bed. It's revenge. Malcolm arrived at Mom's house by 8 the next morning. He'd brought breakfast, coffee, and a briefcase full of legal expertise. We sat in the dining room while Mom pretended not to eavesdrop from the kitchen. These are legitimate, Malcolm said, examining the stock certificates through reading glasses. Properly notarized. Legally binding. You own 10% of Harper Industries. Can Vincent contest it? On what grounds? Your uncle purchased these shares legally. Left them to you in a properly executed will. The company bylaws have no restrictions on inheritance of shares. Malcolm flipped through the documents. Vincent can't touch this. I sipped my coffee. What about the board seat? Bernard's letter said original investors were promised lifetime board positions. Malcolm's eyebrows rose. That's in writing. Multiple letters. Richard Harper's signature on all of them. Then Vincent violated the company's founding agreement when he removed the other shareholders from the board. Malcolm leaned back. Which means any decisions made by the board since then could be contested as illegitimate. The implications hit me like electricity. Including my removal as director. Potentially. Malcolm smiled. This is messier than I thought. I love messy. We spent 3 hours building a strategy. Malcolm explained the process. File paperwork to officially transfer the shares. Request an emergency shareholder meeting. Present evidence of the violated agreements. Demand a board seat. Vincent will fight, Malcolm warned. He'll throw money at lawyers. Let him. I thought about Isabella's face yesterday. Her silence when I asked if she would have supported me. I'm done being pushed around by the Harper family. 9. I went home that afternoon. Isabella's car was gone, which made things easier. I packed a bag quickly, grabbed important documents, and left a note on the kitchen counter. Simple words. Staying at Mom's. I need space. We'll call when ready. My phone rang before I reached the car. Isabella answered this time. Where are you? She asked immediately. I've been worried sick. I'm fine. Taking some time to think. About us. I loaded my bag into the trunk. About everything. Your father demoted me, Isabella. You knew it was coming and didn't warn me. That's not marriage. That's not a partnership. I was trying to protect you, she said. If you'd known in advance, you would have fought him. Made things worse. I thought if it just happened quickly, we could move past it. Move past it. I laughed bitterly. You mean accept it? Roll over. Be grateful Vincent let me keep any job at all. That's not fair. You keep saying that. But fair would have been standing up to your father. Fair would have been choosing your husband over Harper Industries. Got in the car. I'll call you in a few days. Adrian, wait. I hung up. Drove to Malcolm's office. We had work to do. Paperwork took 3 days. Malcolm filed everything precisely, making sure each document was perfect. We transferred the shares officially. Requested an emergency shareholder meeting. Cited company bylaws that required such meetings when shareholders owning more than 5% requested them. Vincent's response came fast. A registered letter delivered to Mom's house. Inside, a legal threat from Harper Industries' attorney. They claimed the shares were invalid. Bernard's estate should have notified the company of the inheritance within 30 days. That my delay in claiming the shares constituted abandonment. Pure bluff, Malcolm said when I showed him the letter. There's no abandonment clause in the company bylaws. They're scrambling. We sent our response. Professional. Cited legal precedents. Included copies of Bernard's documentation about the violated shareholder agreements. Malcolm ended the letter with a simple statement. We look forward to the emergency meeting. Please confirm the date and time. Vincent confirmed 3 hours later. Next Thursday. 10 a.m. Harper Industries main conference room. The same room where he'd fired me a week ago. Perfect. Isabella called that night. Dad's furious. He's talking about suing you for harassment. For trying to extort the company. Tell your father to save his energy for the meeting, I said. Adrian, please. This is destroying our family. Can't you just take a settlement? Dad will pay you fair value for the shares. You can start your own business. We can move on. Is that what you want? For me to disappear quietly? Silence. I thought so, I said. See you Thursday, Isabella. The night before the meeting I couldn't sleep. Lay in Mom's guest bed staring at ceiling shadows. Everything hinged on tomorrow. Malcolm was confident, but confidence didn't guarantee victory. Vincent had resources, connections, decades of business experience. I had 10% in anger. Maybe that would be enough. My phone lit up at 2 a.m. text message from an unknown number. This is Warren Harper. Meet me at Riverside Diner. 1 hour. Come alone. I should have ignored it. Should have called Malcolm. Instead I got dressed and drove to the diner. Warren sat in a corner booth. Coffee already ordered. He looked tired. Older than his 63 years. Thanks for coming, he said when I slid into the seat across from him. What do you want, Warren? To apologize. He wrapped his hands around his mug. For the board meeting. For not speaking up when Vincent proposed removing you. I should have fought harder. Why didn't you? Because I'm a coward. Warren smiled sadly. And because Vincent's my brother. Family loyalty runs deep in the Harpers. Sometimes too deep. I ordered coffee from the waitress. Waited. Vincent's scared, Warren continued. Your Uncle Bernard documented things. Bad things. Deals Vincent made that weren't entirely legal. Contracts signed under questionable circumstances. Nothing catastrophic, but enough to damage the company's reputation if it became public. Bernard told you this. We played poker together every Thursday for 20 years. Bernard talked. I listened. Warren leaned forward. Vincent's afraid you'll use that information. Make it public. Destroy everything he's built. 12. Will I? Yes. Use the information. Warren asked me. That's what I'm trying to figure out. You're angry. You have every right to be. But are you vindictive? Are you the kind of man who burns everything down for revenge? Thought about it. About Isabella's face when I left. About the 3 years I'd spent trying to prove myself to the Harper family. About Vincent's smug expression when he demoted me. I don't want to destroy the company, I said finally. I helped build it. Those contracts I landed, the systems I created, they're still there. Still working. I want credit for that. I want acknowledgement. And if Vincent gives you that, restores your director position. Not enough. I met Warren's eyes. I want a board seat. Real power. Real voice in company decisions. And I want Vincent to understand he can't treat people like disposable tools. Warren nodded slowly. That's reasonable. More reasonable than Vincent expects. I'll talk to him. It's too late for talking. The meeting is in 8 hours. Then I'll vote with you tomorrow. Warren stood. Dropped cash on the table for the coffee. Vincent won't like it. But sometimes family means telling each other hard truths. You've earned your place at that table, Adrian. I should have said that a week ago. He left. I sat alone in the diner, watching the sun rise through the window. Maybe Warren's support would matter. Maybe it wouldn't. Either way, I was done hoping for Harper family approval. Time to take what was mine. 15. The conference room looked different in the morning light. Larger. More intimidating. Malcolm sat beside me, briefcase open. Documents organized in precise stacks. Across the table, Vincent glared like I'd personally insulted his ancestors. Patricia Winters, the company attorney, whispered something to him. He shook his head sharply. Warren arrived last. Took his seat without looking at anyone. Theo, Isabella's cousin, sat beside Vincent. He'd been named acting director in my place. I am 28 years old. Business degree from a mid-tier college. Zero experience in manufacturing operations. But he had the right last name. Isabella wasn't there. Part of me was relieved. Part of me hurts. Let's begin, Vincent said. His voice carried the weight of authority. A man used to controlling rooms. This meeting was called under dubious pretenses. Adrian Torres claims ownership of shares that should have reverted to company control years ago. My client's ownership is legally sound, Malcolm replied smoothly. We have documentation proving. Documentation can be forged. Are you accusing my client of fraud, Mr. Harper? Malcolm's tone went cold. Because that's a serious allegation that would require proof. Vincent's jaw clenched. Patricia touched his arm, whispered something else. He took a breath. We're prepared to offer fair market value for the shares. $50,000. That's generous considering their questionable provenance. Questionable provenance. Malcolm laughed. The shares were purchased legally and transferred through a valid will. Nothing questionable about it. 14. Furthermore, Malcolm continued, we have evidence that Harper Industries violated its founding agreements by removing original investor shareholders from the board without cause. This includes Adrian's late uncle, Bernard Torres, who was promised a lifetime board position by your father, Richard Harper. He slid copies of Bernard's letters across the table. Vincent's face went white as he read. Patricia scanned the documents quickly, her expression shifting from confident to concerned. These letters, Vincent started, are legally binding promises, Malcolm finished. Your father gave his word, put it in writing. Then you systematically violated those agreements when you took over the company. Any shareholder affected by those violations could potentially sue for damages. Are you threatening litigation? Patricia asked sharply. We're establishing facts, Malcolm replied. Fact. Bernard Torres was promised a board seat. Fact. Vincent Harper revoked that seat without cause. Fact. Adrian Torres inherited Bernard's shares and, by extension, his board seat rights. Warren cleared his throat. The letters are real. I've seen them before. Dad made those promises to early investors. Stay out of this, Vincent snapped at his brother. I'm a board member. I'm voting. Warren looked at me. Adrian deserves his board seat. And frankly, he deserves an apology for how he's been treated. Vincent's face went purple. You're taking his side. Against your own family. I'm taking the right side. Warren's voice stayed calm. Which is something you should consider doing. 15. The room went silent. Theo shifted uncomfortably. Patricia flipped through the letters again, making notes. Vincent stared at his brother like Warren had grown a second head. "This is a coup," Vincent said finally. "You're both trying to take my company." "It's not your company," I said. First words I'd spoken since the meeting started. "It's a corporation with multiple shareholders. You own 60%. Own 10. Warren owns 15. Other minority shareholders own 15. You have majority control, but you don't have absolute power. The bylaws state that board seats are appointed by shareholder vote," Malcolm interrupted. "Not by CEO decree. You removed Adrian from the board without proper shareholder approval. That removal was illegitimate." Patricia leaned close to Vincent. They whispered for several minutes. Finally, she addressed the table. "We need to review these documents thoroughly. I recommend postponing this meeting until next week." "No postponement," Malcolm said. "The bylaws require resolution of emergency shareholder meetings within 7 days of filing. We're not granting extensions." Vincent slammed his hand on the table. Coffee cups jumped. "You want a board seat? Fine. Take the damn board seat. But I'm still CEO. I still run this company." "Agreed," I said. "I don't want to run Harper Industries. I just want to be treated fairly. And my director position," I added. "The one you stripped away last week. You'll be reinstated," Patricia said quickly before Vincent could respond. "With back pay for the period of your demotion." 16. Malcolm pulled out a prepared contract. We'd anticipated this outcome, drafted terms. Director position restored. Board seat confirmed. Voting rights established. Sign. Patricia signed for the company. Vincent signed last. His signature angry slashes across the page. "This doesn't change anything," Vincent said. "You're still married to my daughter. Still part of this family. And family falls in line." "Family respects each other," I replied. "Maybe you should try it sometime." "Understood." Malcolm gathered his documents. Warren gave me a small nod. Theo avoided eye contact. Patricia looked relieved the meeting was over. "One more thing," I said at the door. "I'll be reviewing all company contracts from the past 5 years. Any deals that seem questionable will be renegotiated or terminated. Clean business practices only going forward." Vincent's expression went cold. "You have no authority to. Board directors have audit rights," Malcolm said. "Company bylaws, section 17. Adrian can review any documents he deems necessary for proper corporate oversight." We left. The elevator ride down felt like floating. Malcolm grinned the whole way. "That went better than expected," he said. "Vincent folded fast once Warren sided with you." "He folded because he's scared," I replied. "Bernard documented things that could destroy him. Vincent knows I have access to that information now. Will you use it?" "Only if I have to." I thought about Bernard's letters. Questionable deals. The ethical lines Vincent had crossed. But having leverage means I won't need to. Vincent will behave now. 17. I drove to Mom's house. She'd made lunch, somehow knowing I'd need it. We ate sandwiches in the kitchen while I explained everything. The meeting. Warren's support. Vincent's surrender. "You did it," Mom said proudly. "Stood up to bullies. Your father would be so proud. I just wanted fair treatment. Respect. You got more than that. You got power." Mom squeezed my hand. "Use it wisely, Adrian. Power corrupts. Even good people." My phone rang. Isabella. I'd been expecting this call. "You won," she said when I answered. No greeting. Just acknowledgement. I got what I deserved. "There's a difference. Dad's furious. He's talking about firing you anyway. Finding some technicality. He can try. But I have documentation now. And Warren's support. And board authority." I walked to the window. Rain again. "Your father doesn't have absolute control anymore, Isabella. He'll need to accept that. And us. Do we need to accept something too? Closed my eyes. I don't know. You chose your father over me. Over our marriage. That's not something I can just forgive because I won a corporate battle. I chose peace, Isabella said. I was trying to prevent exactly this kind of war. But wars happen when one side refuses to treat the other fairly. Your father started this, Isabella. Not me. Silence on her end. Then quietly. Can we talk? In person. Not about the company. About us. Maybe. When I'm ready. I hung up gently. Wasn't trying to hurt her. Just wasn't ready to forgive yet. The next week passed in strange normalcy. I returned to Harper Industries as director. Moved back into my old office. The staff treated me carefully like I might explode. Theo avoided me completely. Warren stopped by daily to discuss company matters. Vincent stayed distant. Professional. Cold. He ran board meetings with rigid formality, acknowledged my input with minimal words, left the room the moment business concluded. Fine by me. We didn't need to be friends. Just colleagues. Isabella called twice more. I let both go to voicemail. Wasn't ignoring her deliberately. I just wasn't sure what to say. Our marriage existed in limbo. Neither alive nor dead. Eventually we'd need to decide which direction to go. But not yet. Malcolm delivered news on Thursday. The audit of company contracts is revealing interesting things. Several deals with vendor companies that Vincent has personal financial interest in. Not illegal exactly, but ethically questionable. Conflict of interest issues. Document everything, I said. We'll present it at the next board meeting. Vincent will fight. Let him. The bylaws require transparent business practices. He's been sloppy. I leaned back in my chair. Bernard was right about him. Vincent cuts corners. Takes shortcuts. Eventually it catches up. Friday afternoon, Warren knocked on my office door. Got a minute? I waved him in. He sat heavily, looking older than usual. Vincent's planning something. I don't know what. But he's been meeting with Patricia constantly. Taking calls behind closed doors. He's not accepting this new dynamic. What can he do? I have legitimate shares. Legitimate board seat. Vincent's creative when cornered. Just watch your back. Warren stood. And Adrian. Thank you for not destroying the company. You could have. Probably should have. But you chose the harder path. That says something about your character. 19. The warning proved prescient. Monday morning I arrived to find security waiting at my office. Vincent stood behind them, face grim. Adrian Torres, you're being escorted from the premises pending investigation into corporate espionage, he announced formally. Other employees had gathered, watching. Evidence has emerged suggesting you've been sharing confidential company information with competitors. My stomach dropped. That's insane. I would never. Patricia has documentation. Emails from your account. Phone records. Vincent's expression held triumph. The board will vote tomorrow on your termination and removal from all positions. Security moved forward. I held up my hands. I want to see this evidence. I have rights as a director. You're suspended pending investigation. No access to company property or records until the board rules. Vincent nodded to security. Please escort Mr. Torres out. They walked me through the building. Past the cubicles. Past the break room. Past everyone I'd worked with for 3 years. Humiliation burned through me. Vincent had found his angle. False accusations. Corporate espionage was serious enough to invalidate my board seat if proven. And proving innocence would be harder than proving guilt. Malcolm met me in the parking lot. I'd called him on the way down. They're framing you. Classic Vincent move. Create a crisis. Decisively. Make you look guilty by association. Can they do this? Legally. They can suspend you pending investigation. But the evidence needs to be legitimate. If it's fabricated, we can sue for defamation and wrongful termination. Malcolm opened his briefcase. We need to see these emails they claim exist. Get copies of everything. Vincent won't give me access. No. But Warren might. 20. Warren answered on the first ring. I explained the situation. The accusations. The evidence I hadn't seen. The suspension. Vincent showed me the emails this morning, Warren said. They look bad, Adrian. Really bad. Messages discussing proprietary processes. Contract details. Sent from your company account to a competitor's email address. I never sent those messages. Someone's framing me. I believe you. But proving it. Warren sighed. Vincent's good at this. He's been planning since the shareholder meeting. Waiting for the right moment to strike back. Can you get me copies of the emails? I need to analyze them. Figure out how he faked them. I'll try. But Adrian, be careful. If you push too hard, Vincent might escalate further. Make criminal charges instead of just corporate ones. After hanging up, Malcolm and I strategized. We needed computer forensics experts. IT specialists who could prove the emails were fabricated. But that took time. The board vote was tomorrow. We need to delay the vote, Malcolm said. File an injunction. Claim improper procedure. On what grounds? Directors have the right to defend themselves before termination votes. You were suspended without due process. No hearing. No chance to respond to accusations. That violates corporate governance standards. We spent the afternoon filing emergency motions. By evening, we had a court order postponing the board vote for 2 weeks pending review of proper procedure. Vincent's attorney tried to fight it. The judge ruled in our favor. Small victory. But Vincent wasn't done yet. 21. Isabella showed up at Mom's house that night. I almost didn't answer the door. But she looked desperate through the window. Exhausted. Like she'd been crying for hours. I know you probably hate me, she said when I let her in. But Adrian, I need you to know I had nothing to do with this. Dad didn't tell me about the espionage accusations. I found out when everyone else did. Do you believe them? The accusations? No. She said it firmly. I know you. You'd never betray the company. Whatever evidence Dad has, it's fake. Tell him that. Your father. Tell him to stop. Isabella laughed bitterly. You think he'd listen? Vincent Harper doesn't listen to anyone. Not even his daughter. Especially not when his pride is wounded. She sat on Mom's couch. I spoke to Warren. He's helping you gather evidence. But Adrian, Dad's connections run deep. He has friends in law enforcement. Friends in the business community. If he wants to destroy you, he has resources. Then I need better resources. I sat across from her. Isabella, I need to ask you something. If this goes nuclear, if your father and I end up in a legal war that tears the company apart, which side will you choose? She met my eyes. I don't know. That's the honest answer. He's my father. You're my husband. I love you both. This whole situation is a nightmare. You'll need to choose eventually. I know. Tears ran down her face. I'm so sorry, Adrian. For all of it. For not warning you. For not standing up to him sooner. For being a coward. 22. Warren delivered the email copies 2 days later. Malcolm and I spent hours analyzing them with a computer forensics expert named Kelsey Wu. She was brilliant, methodical, and expensive. Worth every penny. These are sophisticated forgeries, Kelsey said, highlighting sections of code. Someone with advanced IT knowledge created fake email headers. Make it look like they originated from your account. But the metadata doesn't match. The timestamps are wrong. The server routing is impossible. Can you prove it? Malcolm asked. Absolutely. I can demonstrate in court that these emails were fabricated. I can probably even trace them back to their actual origin point. Kelsey smiled. Whoever did this was good. But not good enough. We compiled a report. 40 pages of technical analysis proving the emails were fake. Malcolm filed it with the court as evidence for the ongoing injunction case. Send copies to every board member. Vincent's response came fast. A settlement offer. Drop all claims. Resign from the board. Accept a buyout of my shares at triple fair market value. Walk away rich and clean. He's scared, Malcolm said, reading the offer. The forensics report proves he fabricated evidence. That's multiple felonies. Corporate fraud. Evidence tampering. If you pursue this, Vincent goes to prison. What's he offering? Total. $500,000. Plus a non-disclosure agreement. You can never speak publicly about any of this. Thought about it. $500,000 was life-changing money. I could start my own business. Move away. Start fresh. Isabella and I could rebuild somewhere Vincent's shadow didn't reach. No, I said finally. I'm not taking it. 23. Malcolm raised his eyebrows. That's a lot of money to walk away from. It's blood money. Vincent's trying to buy silence. Trying to sweep his crimes under corporate carpets. Understood. Paced Malcolm's office. If I take this deal, he gets away with everything. Faces no consequences. Probably does this to the next person who challenges him. So what do you want? Everything. Board seat. Director position. And Vincent is out as CEO. Malcolm whistled. That's ambitious. Your 10% plus Warren's 15 is only 25. You need a majority vote to remove a CEO. Then I find more allies. I thought about the other shareholders. The minority holders who'd been silent through all this. Harper Industries has 12 minority shareholders with individual holdings between 1 and 3%. If I can convince enough of them to vote with me, we hit majority. Vincent will fight. Could get ugly. It's already ugly. Might as well make it count. I spent the next week meeting with minority shareholders. Small investors who'd bought in over the years. Most barely paid attention to company politics. But they paid attention when I showed them the forensics report. The fabricated emails. Vincent's attempt to frame me for corporate espionage. If he'll do this to a board member, I told each one, imagine what he'd do to protect himself from accountability to you. Your investments aren't safe with someone willing to commit felonies. One by one they agreed. Committed their votes. By Friday I had 38% total. Combined with Warren's 15 and my 10, that was 63%. Majority. 24. The emergency board meeting was scheduled for Monday morning. Same conference room where this all started. But this time I controlled the agenda. Malcolm had filed it properly. Motion to remove Vincent Harper as CEO due to corporate malfeasance and evidence fabrication. Warren seconded. Vincent knew what was coming. He'd spent the weekend calling shareholders, trying to change minds, offering deals, making threats. But the forensics report was too damning. Even his loyal supporters couldn't defend fabricating evidence. Isabella called Sunday night. Dad's having a breakdown. He's talking about burning the company down rather than losing control. Adrian, please. Isn't there another way? He fabricated evidence against me. I tried to destroy my career, my reputation. He could have gotten me arrested. Kept my voice steady. There's no other way, Isabella. Your father made his choices. And us. What happens to us? I've been thinking about that all week. About 3 years of marriage. About the woman I'd fallen in love with versus the woman who'd stayed silent while her family tried to destroy me. I don't know, I said honestly. We'll figure it out after Monday. One crisis at a time. Monday morning arrived cold and clear. I wore my best suit. Malcolm carried 3 briefcases full of documentation. Warren met us in the parking lot, looking nervous but determined. Vincent's inside, Warren said. With Patricia and 6 lawyers. They're planning something. Let them plan. I straightened my tie. We have the votes. That's all that matters. The conference room was packed. Every board member present. Multiple attorneys. Several minority shareholders who'd flown in to vote in person. Vincent sat at the head of the table, face carved from stone. "This meeting is called to order," Warren said formally. He'd been elected temporary chairman for the proceedings. First order of business. Motion to remove Vincent Harper as Chief Executive Officer of Harper Industries, citing corporate malfeasance, evidence fabrication, and violations of fiduciary duty to shareholders. "I'd like to speak," Vincent said. His voice was quiet, dangerous. "Before any vote is taken, I want everyone here to understand what they're doing. Harper Industries is my life's work. My father's legacy. Removing me destroys 50 years of family tradition. Tradition doesn't justify crimes," I said. "You fabricated evidence. Tried to frame me for corporate espionage. The forensics report proves it conclusively." Vincent's jaw clenched. "That report is biased. Paid for by someone with an agenda." "Then let's bring in independent experts," Malcolm suggested. "Have them review the evidence. We're happy to submit to neutral analysis." Patricia whispered urgently to Vincent. He shook his head, stood abruptly. "You want the company. Take it. But don't expect it to survive without me. I have relationships you can't replicate. Contracts that depend on my personal connections. Within 6 months, Harper Industries will be bankrupt under your leadership." "Are you threatening to sabotage the company?" Warren asked sharply. "I'm stating facts." Vincent looked directly at me. "You're a capable operations manager, Adrian. But you're not a CEO. You don't have the vision, the experience, the Harper name that opens doors." "Maybe not," I replied. "But I have integrity. Something you've clearly forgotten." Silence fell, heavy and complete. "Let's vote," Warren said finally. "All in favor of removing Vincent Harper as CEO?" My hand went up. Warren's. Every minority shareholder eyed courted. Theo abstained, looking miserable. Patricia voted against as company attorney. But the numbers were clear. "Motion passes," Warren announced. "Vincent Harper is removed as CEO effective immediately. The interim CEO will be appointed by board vote at next week's meeting." Vincent stood slowly. I gathered his papers. Looked around the room at faces that wouldn't meet his eyes. Finally, his gaze landed on me. "You've won today," he said quietly. "But victories don't last. Remember that, Adrian. Eventually, everyone falls." He walked out. Patricia followed. The room exhaled collectively. Done it. Taken down Vincent Harper. Claimed my place not just at the table, but at its head. The shares Uncle Bernard left me, the documentation he'd meticulously maintained, the courage to fight back. It had all led here. To this moment. To victory. That afternoon, I drove to the cemetery where Uncle Bernard was buried. Stood at his grave in the cold November wind. Placed my hand on the headstone. "Thank you," I said quietly. "For seeing what Vincent was. For documenting everything. For leaving me the tools to fight back." The wind carried my words away. But I felt lighter somehow. Like I'd honored a debt I didn't know I owed. My phone rang. Isabella answered. "I heard what happened," she said. "Dad's devastated. He's talking about selling his shares. Leaving the business entirely. That's his choice. Is it over now? Between you and my family?" Thought about it. About Vincent's final words. About the Harper legacy built on shortcuts and intimidation. About whether I wanted to spend my life connected to that toxicity. "I think," I said carefully, "that you and I need to decide who we are separately before we can figure out who we are together. This isn't about your family anymore, Isabella. It's about whether we can build something honest. Something real." "I want to try," she whispered. "If you'll let me. Then prove it. Not with words. With choices. Show me that you're willing to stand up to your father. To choose our marriage over Harper's loyalty." "I will, I promise." Promises were easy. Following through was hard. But maybe, just maybe, something good could come from all this destruction. Warren called an hour later. Board meeting next week to appoint an interim CEO. Several members are suggesting you for the position. Me? I laughed. I'm 34. I've been a director for 3 years. You're also the only person who stood up to Vincent, who fought for integrity. That counts for something. Warren paused. Think about it, Adrian. You could really lead this company. Take it in a new direction. I drove home slowly. Not to Isabella's house. Still wasn't ready for that. But to Mom's place where I'd been staying. She had dinner waiting. Asked how the meeting went. I told her everything. Your father would be so proud, she said again. Same words as before. But they hit differently now. 'Cause I'd actually done it. Actually won. What happens now? Asked. Now I decide what kind of leader I want to be. Whether I'm doing this for revenge or for something better. I looked at her. What do you think? I think, Mom said carefully, that you've proven you can fight. Now you need to prove you can build. Anyone can tear down. It takes real strength to create something good from ruins. She was right. Vincent was gone. The board seat was mine. The company stood at a crossroads. I could run it the Harper way. Shortcuts, connections, intimidation. Or I could try something different. Something honest. I'll need help, I said. People I can trust. Warren's one. But I'll need more. Then find them. Build a team. Create the company you wished Harper Industries had been all along. Over the next week I did exactly that. Reached out to colleagues I respected. Experts in manufacturing, operations, finance. People who valued integrity over profit margins. Slowly, carefully, I assembled a leadership team. The board voted me interim CEO on Thursday. Unanimous except for Theo, who abstained again. I accepted with one condition. 6-month review. If the company wasn't improving under my leadership, I'd step down. No ego. No clinging to power. Vincent didn't attend the meeting. I heard through Warren that he'd taken a vacation. Gone somewhere warm to recover from the humiliation. His 60% shares remained his property, but without the CEO position, they were just investment vehicles. No power attached. Isabella and I met for coffee on Saturday. It was the first time we'd seen each other in 3 weeks. She looked different. Thinner. Tired. But something in her eyes had changed. Something stronger. I told Dad he was wrong, she said. About you. About everything. He's not speaking to me now. Says I betrayed the family. I'm sorry. Don't be. It needed to happen. She reached across the table. Took my hand. I chose you, Adrian. Finally, actually chose you over Harper's loyalty. It cost me my relationship with my father. But it was the right choice. What happens now? With us? I don't know. But I'd like to try again. If you're willing. Not as Harper and Torres. Just as Isabella and Adrian. 2 people trying to build something real. I looked at our joined hands. Thought about 3 years of marriage. About the woman who'd stayed silent versus the woman who'd finally found her voice. About whether people could really change. Okay, I said. Let's try. It wouldn't be easy. Trust, once broken, took time to rebuild. But maybe that was the point. Maybe the hard things were worth doing precisely because they were hard. 3 months later, Harper Industries posted its best quarterly profits in 5 years. The contracts I'd renegotiated started paying off. The systems I'd implemented ran smoothly. The team I'd built worked like a synchronized machine. Vincent sold his shares quietly. 60% purchased by a consortium of investors I'd assembled. People who believed in the new direction. Who wanted ethical business practices and long-term sustainability over quick profits. I became permanent CEO in March. No longer interim. No longer temporary. The board voted unanimously. Even Theo, who'd finally found his own path in the company's marketing division. Uncle Bernard's shares still hung on my office wall, framed. A reminder of where this all started. of the man who'd documented everything and left me the tools to fight back. Isabella and I renewed our vows in April. Small ceremony. Just family and close friends. Warren walked her down the aisle since Vincent refused to attend. Mom cried happy tears. Malcolm stood as my best man. We built something new. Not Harper Industries. Not Torres Incorporated. Just a company trying to do right by its employees, its shareholders, its community. Some people called it naive. Said business required ruthlessness. Those nice guys finished last. Maybe they were right. But I was willing to find out. Because at the end of everything, the betrayal, the fighting, the victory, I'd learned something important. Power wasn't about controlling others. It was about controlling yourself. Choosing integrity even when shortcuts beckoned. Building something worth keeping instead of just taking what you could grab. Vincent had taught me that lesson accidentally. By being everything I refused to become. And Uncle Bernard had given me the tools to fight back. The shares. The documentation. The proof that one person standing up could make a difference. I owed them both. In different ways. But mostly I owed myself. For refusing to stay down. For fighting back. For proving that you didn't need to be born a Harper to lead Harper Industries. You just needed to be willing to work for it. To fight for it. To stand up when everyone else said sit down. And sometimes when you did that, you didn't just win, you changed everything.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoy watching Karma, Payback, come full circle every week, we dive into tales of betrayal and poetic justice. Don't miss the next one. Tap the subscribe button and join the Revenge Squad.